This is for the sample questions. Most of this week's is review, so I'm going to be doing particular ones. Number 7, we have 9 over 33, and we want to put that in simplest form. We're going to do that by finding the greatest common factor, which in this case happens to be 3. So we divide both of them by 3. Whatever we do to one, we do to the other, and we get 3 elevenths. So 3 elevenths for number 7. For number 8, we have 3/4 is less than 2/3, and we're asked if that's true. In order to find that out, we're going to have to get a common denominator. Our common denominator for 3 and 4 is going to be 12. So in order to make 4 into 12, we'd multiply by 3. So we would multiply 3 by 3 and get 9. Whatever we do to one, we do to the other. So 3 times 4 on the second fraction is 12. So we multiply 2 times 4 and get 8. Now we just have to compare these two, and since 9 is greater than 8, then this is false. For number 9, we have to subtract. Once again, adding and subtracting is colt. They have to be like terms, so we have to make both of these as a common denominator, which in this case could be 14. So 6/14 stays the same. We multiplied 7 times 2 to make our 14, so 2 times 2 is 4. And we do just our 6 minus 4 and get 2/14. Those are both even, so we divide them both by 2, and we get 1/7. Now, on this one, we could also use 7 as a common denominator and divide by 2, and then divide by 2, and we get 3 over 7 minus 2 over 7, which still gives us the answer 1/7. On number 10, we're asked to find 3/4 of 12 sticks. So we can take 3/4 of means multiply. So 3/4 times 12, and 12, any number is that number over 1. So then we can go ahead here. We have a multiplication. A multiplication we can cancel. We can divide these both by 4. If we divide this by 4, we're going to get 3. If we divide that by 4, we're going to get 1. So now we have 3 times 3, which is 9, 1 times 1, which is 1, and anything over 1 is itself. So our answer is going to be 9 sticks. Now another strategy for working this when we have a fraction is we can draw a fraction box. We can divide it into fourths, that's our denominator, and we want 3 of the fourths. So we want 3 of these 4, and it says 3/4 of 12, so 12 is our whole amount. Now we're going to take 12 and we're going to put that into these 4 boxes. We do that by taking 12 and dividing it by 4, and we get 3. So these 4 3s add up to our 12 here. So we want to know for this what we're going to have for 3 of the 12s, and we have 3 3s here, and 3 times 3 is equal to 9. So that's the second strategy that you can use. On 11, we're simply multiplying. We don't need common denominators. On this particular problem, we cannot cancel, so we simply multiply numerator times numerator and get 35, and denominator times denominator and get 99. And 35 99ths, 35 only has factors of 1, 5, 7, and 35. And none of those work for 99. So we're going to end up with our answer 35 over 99. For number 12, we have 1/5 of the money in the cash box is $30, and they want to know how much money is in the full box. One thing we can do with this is we can take and just translate each of these into a math sentence. So we have 1/5, then of means multiply, so times, then the amount of money in the cash box is something we don't know. So we can simply put a box there, and then is becomes equals. 2 plus 2 is 4. 2 plus 2 equals 4. And then the 30, we're going to take 30 and write that right here. So we have a multiplication problem going this way. That's a multiplication, but it's missing a number, so we can start with the 30 and go backwards and divide. So we can do 30 right here divided by 1/5. So 30 divided by 1/5, and we put 30 over 1 divided by 1/5. Then we change this into multiply, and then if we change one thing, we change something else. We flip this to 5 over 1. Now we multiply numerator times numerator, 150. Denominator times denominator is 1. So it gives us a total amount of $150 in the cash box. Another strategy for this is, since there's a fraction, we can use a fraction box. We have 1/5, so we're going to divide this into fifths, and we want one of those fifths. And it tells us that 1/5 is 30, and they want us to find the total. So the total is going to be here. That's our unknown, and we know that 1/5 is going to be 30. So this fifth right here is 30. And since fractions are equal parts, all these other parts also happen to be 30. So we have 30, 60, 90, 120, 150. So we get $150 in the cash box. For 13, we have division of fractions. We actually never divide fractions. We multiply by the reciprocal. So we do what's called keep our first fraction, change our division into multiplication, and then we're going to flip. Because we change one thing, we have to change something else. We flip this into 18 over 3. Now once we have this as a multiplication problem, we can go ahead and cross cancel. 9 is divisible by 9. 9 goes into 9 once. 9 goes into 18 twice. So now we multiply numerator times numerator. 2 times 2 is 4. Denominator times denominator is 3. And a fraction is a division problem. So 4 divided by 3 is 1. And that's going to leave us with 1 remaining, and 1 1/3. So 4/3, 3/3 is 1, and we have 1/3 left over. Okay, for number 14, these are problems. 13 and 15 are adding and subtracting decimals. All we need to remember with decimals is that it's colt, combining only like terms, which means that our hundredths have to line up, our tenths do, our ones, and our tens. And we can remember that by just lining up our decimal point and putting our decimal point into our answer. Once that is done, we're going to do this problem just as if there is no decimal point in the problem itself. So we're just going to subtract, since we already have this decimal point in our answer. So 8 minus 2 is 6, 6 minus 6 is 0, 7 minus 3 is 4, 4 minus 1 is 3. So 34 and 6/100. So just move your decimal, line up decimal points, move it down, and then subtract as normal. So once again, we have our decimal points lined up. We put our decimal point into our answer, and then we're simply adding 23 and 15 to get 38. So we put our decimal point right there, 38 hundredths. For multiplication, we're actually going to look at this as 85 times 12 and multiply it like we normally would. So 5 times 2 is 10, carry our 1. 2 times 8 is 16, plus 1 is 17. Then we go over to our tens here. 1 times 5 is 5, 1 times 8 is 8. Then we're going to add our partial products and get 0. 12, and 10. So on here we multiply and then count. Here we have two places that have decimals after them. So we have two decimal places, so that means we're going to have two places in our answer. So our decimal point is going to go there. So our answer is going to be 10 and 20 hundredths, which can be simplified into 10.2 since we can get rid of the trailing zero. For number 17, we're dividing, but we have large numbers. Since they end with zeros, we can go ahead and, if we do the same thing to both numbers, we're going to get the same answer. So what we're going to do here is we're going to divide each of these by 100. Remember, a fraction is a division problem, so a division problem is a fraction. So we can write it this way also. And we can cancel that 0 and that 0. Up here we can just cancel 2 there and 2 there. Our new problem is simply 40 divided by 8, which is 5. So 4,000 divided by 800 is also going to be 5. So if I did 6,000 divided by 1,200, I could simply go through, cancel the zeros. I have to do the same amount. So if I do 2 here, I have to do 2 over here. So now I have 60 divided by 12, which in this case would also be 5. So we're trying to just make it into a simpler problem. On 18, we're simply going to take our decimal point here and put it up into the answer. And once we do that, now we're just going to ignore the decimal point and divide just as if this is 2015 divided by 5. So 5, first of all, goes into 20 4 times. 5 times 4 is 20. And then we're going to go through and subtract and get 0. Then we have to bring down the 1. 5 goes into 1 0 times. Since we brought something down, we still have to put something above it, even if it's a 0. So 0 times 5 is 0 and 1. Bring down the 5, and we can see 5 goes into 15 3 times. So our answer is going to be 4 and 300 since our decimal point just moved up. So 4 and 300. On 19, we want to put this as a fraction in simplest form. So we have 38%. So when we have percent, cent means out of 100, like 100 cents in a dollar or 100 years in a century. So we're simply going to take and rewrite this as the 38 as our numerator. And then we're going to take our denominator and make it 100 because a percent sign is a 1 and 2 zeros of 100. So we're just going to put that as over 100. And now that we have a fraction, the second part tells us in simplest form. On here we can see they're even, so we can divide by 2. 38 divided by 2 is 19. 100 divided by 2 is 50. And 19 is prime, so 19/50th is going to be our answer. If we were to take another one, simply 45%, we can simply take that and do 45 over 100. So once again, the 45 is our numerator. Our percent sign becomes the 100 in our denominator. And then we simply find something we can divide by. In this case, we can divide both of these by 5. If we divide them both by 5, 45 divided by 5 is 9, and 100 divided by 5 is 20, 9/20. Okay, for number 20, we have 15% of 200. So for this one here, we're going to go ahead and translate this into a sentence. One of the key things that they're learning this year, they have to remember, is that of means multiply. And then here we know that 15% becomes 15 over 100. And then we're going to take 200, and another important concept this year is any number is that number over 1. So now we have 15 times 100 times 200 over 1. So we just brought every one down and made it part of our sentence right in order. Now we're going to go through and we're going to cancel. We can cross cancel. Both of these are divisible by 100. 100 goes into 100 one time, and 100 goes into 200 twice. So we multiply numerator times numerator. 15 times 2 is 30. 1 times 1, denominator times denominator is 1. Anything over 1 is itself. So 15% of 200 is 30. So if we had, for instance, 20% of 80, we would put 20 over 100 times, of means times, 80 over 1. Now once again, we can cancel here. We can cancel a 0, and we can cancel a 0. And so if we do that, 20 times 8, 8 times 2 is 16, and that's going to be 160. And then 10 times 1 is 10. And then, of course, we can simplify that. 160 divided by 10 is going to be 16. Now, sometimes that gets confusing. We have 20% of 80. One of our other problems was something like 20% of the amount of money is 80. So that one's